My name is Tucker Marsden. I built everything I have from gravel and 4 a.m. mornings and a coffee can under a bed in East Memphis. I know what it means to lose something. I know what it means to start over. But I want to tell you about the night I sat at my own anniversary dinner, watched my wife touch another man's shoulder, and smiled, because I had already decided exactly how this was going to end. But before I get to that night, I need to take you back 11 weeks. Because that's when everything changed, not the marriage had been changing for years, but me. That's when Tucker Marsden stopped grieving and started planning. She said, "He's really talented, baby. You'd like him." That's what she said to me. Standing in the most expensive restaurant in the city, in a dress I'd watched her buy without her knowing I was watching, talking about the man she'd been sleeping with for 14 months like he was a mutual friend she was excited to introduce. You'd like him. I have turned those 4 words over in my hands every day since. I still cannot decide if she believed them, or if she had simply been lying for so long that the difference had stopped mattering to her. My name is Tucker Marsden. I'm 38 years old. I own a property services company I built from a used pressure washer and a beat-up Dodge pickup when I was 23 years old. My mother, Gloria, cleaned office buildings from 4 a.m. to noon and waitressed from 2 to close, and she raised 4 boys on that schedule without ever once letting us feel poor in spirit, even when we were broke in fact. I wore my brother Damon's hand-me-down Reeboks until I was 15. The left sole flapped when I walked and kids clown me for it every single day. I did not shrink. I turned cold and focused instead, and I have been cold and focused ever since. That is the most important thing you need to understand about me before this story goes any further. When Tucker Marsden goes quiet, something has already been decided. I had been married to Andrea Simone Marsden for 10 years the night she brought him to our anniversary dinner. 10 years of building together, of a miscarriage we survived in year 3 that we never fully talked about afterward, of 6 and 7 and 8 where I worked too much and came home too empty and she started looking for something I wasn't giving her. I'm not pretending I was innocent in what broke. But I never stopped. I never looked elsewhere. I never made her feel like a footnote in her own marriage. She did. And on November the 14th, my accountant Miss Patrice, meticulous 60 years old, reads every line, flagged a recurring charge on a shared credit card Andrea didn't know I still had full access to. A boutique hotel in Brentwood. 6 separate charges. 4 months. I pulled the itemized receipts on my laptop in my office with the door closed, and I sat there for a long time not moving. Then I called Damon. "She's been playing me," I said. He drove to my office that same night. We sat in the dark conference room until 2 a.m. and Damon, who has known me longer than anyone alive except our mother, said 7 words I will never forget. "You do it where everyone can see." I called my attorney Harold Webb the next morning. I began restructuring my business assets into a separate LLC. I documented everything. I mapped every exit. The only thing left was the confrontation, and I was going to do it on my terms, in front of the people who had stood at my wedding and toasted this marriage, so that history would record it correctly. I had not planned on Brennan being in the room. That was Andrea's gift to me. And it changed everything. I'm standing in the parking lot of Valera at 5:47 p.m. holding a single white rose I bought from the same flower stand on Jefferson Avenue where I bought Andrea's first flower 10 years ago. The stand is run by an old Haitian man named Mr. Pierre who never remembers faces but always remembers flowers. I told him white rose, single stem, and he wrapped it the same way he did a decade ago without knowing it. I don't know why that detail matters to me. It just does. My phone buzzes. It's Harold Webb. "Asset documentation is complete and filed, Tucker. Everything is clean." "Thank you, Harold." I pocket the phone. I straighten my jacket. I walk in. The host leads me to the private dining room Tucker had reserved 3 months ago. Back when this dinner was still supposed to be a celebration, back when I thought 10 years deserved a room full of the people who loved us. 14 place settings. The good crystal. Candles. And on the center of the table, a framed photo from our wedding night that I'd given to the event coordinator to display. Andrea laughing, head thrown back, my hand at her waist, both of us looking like people who had no idea what was coming. I tipped the coordinator. I straighten the photo. My phone buzzes again. Not a call this time. A notification from a shared location app that Andrea set up for us in year 2 when I was traveling for work. She forgot it existed. I didn't. Her location shows her leaving not from our house, but from the Courtyard Marriott on Hillside Avenue. I stare at that notification for 4 seconds. I set the phone face down on the table. I pick up the white rose and I turn it once between my fingers and I think about the man I was at 28 years old in a 2-bedroom apartment on Shelby Drive, watching Andrea sleep, thinking, I would burn the whole world down before I let anything hurt her. The rose stops turning. I smile. And I am aware, in the way you are aware of a temperature drop before a storm, that the smile does not reach my eyes. Damon arrives first. My brother walks into that dining room, reads my face in under 2 seconds the way only someone who has known you your entire life can read a face, and comes straight to me. He doesn't ask if I'm okay. He grips my shoulder once, firm, and stands beside me. That is Damon. That has always been Damon. Guests begin filtering in. Raymond, my business partner of 11 years. Andrea's parents, Dwight and Miss Carolyn. 3 couples who were at our wedding. Damon's wife Keisha, who hugs me a little too long and I let her. Then the door opens and Brennan walks in. He's laughing at something on his phone. Camera bag on his shoulder. Tall, easy in his skin, moving through the room like a man who belongs wherever he stands. He shakes Raymond's hand. Raymond laughs at something he says. I watch him from across the room. I watch him the way I watched that Dodge pickup the first time I drove it off the lot, assessing exactly what I was dealing with, exactly what it could and couldn't carry, exactly how long before it needed to be replaced. Then Andrea walks in. She is in the burgundy dress she bought 3 weeks ago from the boutique on West End. She is stunning. That is the honest truth and I will not pretend otherwise. She scans the room and I watch her eyes find Brennan first, just for a half second, just a flicker of confirmation before she looks for me. The white rose in my hand goes still. She finds my eyes and smiles and crosses the room toward me, and I let the warmth come up into my face because I have been practicing this for 11 weeks and I am very, very good at it by now. Andrea crosses the room and cups my face in both hands and kisses my cheek. Baby, you look so handsome. I turn to face her fully. You look beautiful, Dre. She does. And for one unguarded half second I let myself feel the full 10 years. The miscarriage in year 3 that we held together in a hospital corridor at 2 a.m. and never fully spoke about again. The night the business cleared $1 million and we stood in the kitchen crying like children. The way she used to reach for my hand in her sleep. I breathe it in. Then I let it go. Oh, I hope it's okay. I invited Brennan. He's going to photograph the evening as a gift for us. Isn't that sweet? She says us. About the man she has been meeting at the Courtyard Marriott on Hillside Avenue 6 times in 4 months. She says us and she means it as kindness. That was thoughtful of him, I say. Andrea exhales, she'd been holding that breath. I knew you wouldn't mind. He's really talented, you'd like him. You'd like him. There they are. Those 4 words. I'm sure I would, I say warmly. Across the room Damon has watched this entire exchange. He turns away and presses his lips together hard. Gloria arrives 30 seconds later, steps through the door and her eyes go immediately, not to me, not to Andrea, to Brennan standing near the bar. Then they cut to me. I'm already looking at her. My mother holds my gaze for 3 seconds and I watch something settle in her face. Not surprise. Confirmation. She'd seen something in Andrea for years that she mentioned once and I defended against and she let go. She was right. She has always been right. She walks to her seat without a word and I love her more in that moment than I have words for. Cocktail hour. Brennan is working the room, charming, professional, making people comfortable the way men like him have perfected. He's laughing with Andrea's father Dwight, which is perhaps the single most offensive thing I have witnessed all night. Raymond pulls me aside. Who's the photographer? He seems cool. Andrea's friend. Raymond studies my face with 11 years of knowing me behind his eyes. You good? I'm great. He doesn't believe me. He shouldn't. Brennan eventually navigates toward me. He has no choice, avoiding the husband all evening would look strange. He approaches clean and confident. Hand extended. Mr. Marsden, Brennan. Thank you for having me. Andrea speaks so highly of you. 10 years, man. Congratulations. I take his hand. Firm grip. Eye contact that does not move. I know who you are, Brennan. Half a second. His smile holds but something behind his eyes does a rapid, quiet recalculation. Ha. Yeah, Andrea must have mentioned me. She did. More than she realized. He laughs, uncertain, slightly too loud. I smile and move away to greet Miss Carolyn. Behind me I feel him standing still, the first cold thread of something he cannot yet name moving through him. He glances toward Andrea. She doesn't see it. She is laughing at something Damon just said, completely unaware that the room she carefully constructed is already developing cracks. Dinner is called. The seating chart, Andrea's arrangement, places Brennan 4 seats down from me on the same side of the table. directly in my sight line. There is no version of this that is an accident. Andrea moves to adjust his place card herself. Tucks it in. Makes sure his setting is correct. It is a small, domestic gesture, the kind you perform for someone whose comfort lives in your hands. Gloria sees it and sets her fork down. Keisha sees it and touches Damon's arm under the table without looking at him. Miss Carolyn sees it and goes perfectly still with her wine glass suspended halfway to her lips. I see all of it. I reach for the water pitcher and refill my own glass. My hand is completely steady. Damon leans close, barely moving his lips. You sure about tonight? I take a slow sip of water. Never been more sure of anything. He sits back. Brennan takes his seat, sets his camera on the empty chair beside him, makes easy conversation with the couple to his left. I watch him for exactly the amount of time it takes to complete a final mental inventory of a situation. Then I turn to Andrea's father beside me and ask about his garden and listen with complete and genuine attention, because Dwight Whitfield is a good man who does not deserve to feel the wrongness of this evening any sooner than necessary. Midway through the first course, Andrea rises to check on the dessert display. She passes behind Brennan's chair. Her hand drops to his shoulder, fingertips only barely 2 seconds. To a careless eye it looks like nothing. Like someone steadying themselves in passing. But the pressure is wrong. The pause is wrong. The slight curl of her fingers before they lift is wrong. Gloria sees it. She places her fork down and does not pick it up again for a full minute. Raymond sees it from across the table and looks immediately at me. I am mid-conversation with Andrea's father. I do not visibly react. But Raymond has known me 11 years. He knows what my stillness looks like when it is performing calm over something that has been decided. He picks up his drink and does not put it back down. Andrea returns to her seat, laughing. She touches my forearm, the same hand. I smile at her. The candles flicker from a passing server. Brennan catches my eyes across the table for one brief moment. I hold his gaze pleasantly, warmly, with the kind of complete ease that should terrify him but hasn't reached him yet. He looks back at his plate. Picks up his fork. Under the table Gloria finds my knee and presses her hand there once. The same hand that pressed my knee in a Memphis hospital waiting room when I was 9 years old and our father didn't come back. I cover it with my own hand for 3 seconds. That is our entire conversation. It always has been enough. I excuse myself between courses. Walk through the main floor, past the bar into the men's room. I run cold water over my wrists, something Gloria taught me when I was 12 and the anger would come up too fast and too hot. Cool the pulse points, baby. Make the body believe it's calm and the mind will follow. I pull out my phone. Call Harold Webb. It rings once. Tucker. He's here, Harold. Pause. The man? Sitting at my anniversary table. A longer pause. Harold Webb has been a family attorney 30 years. Son. I'm not changing the plan. I'm executing it tonight. Everything filed. Everything is filed and documented. Tucker, you don't have to. I'm not asking permission. I'm informing you. I look at myself in the mirror. The man looking back is calm and certain and completely finished. I'll call you tomorrow morning. I hang up. Straighten my tie. Walk back to the table and sit down and immediately ask Andrea if she remembered to order the honey bread pudding, the one from our first date at that small restaurant in Germantown that closed years ago. Her whole face opens up. I did. I tracked down the recipe and everything. Good, I say warmly. I was hoping. Damon exhales through his nose 2 seats down. He knows that was not a question about dessert. Between the first and second course, Miss Carolyn touches Andrea's elbow and steers her gently toward the corridor near the hostess stand. I don't follow, but I don't need to. I know Miss Carolyn Whitfield. I have known her for 12 years and she has never once failed to see what is directly in front of her. I find out later word for word what she said. Andrea Simone. Who is that young man? Brennan? He's the photographer, Mama, I told everyone. I didn't ask what he is. I asked who he is. Silence in the corridor. He's nobody, Mama. Her voice cracked on nobody. Just slightly. Just enough. Miss Carolyn looked at her daughter and said, Your husband is one of the finest men I have ever watched love somebody. And he is sitting in there very, very quiet. Andrea said Tucker was fine. Tucker is not fine, baby. And neither are you. Miss Carolyn touched her daughter's face once and walked back to the table. Andrea stood alone in that corridor for 11 seconds. I know because I was watching the entrance from my seat and I counted. She came back to the table and reached for her wine and I handed it to her before she could reach it herself, and she looked at me with something flickering behind her eyes that I think was the beginning of understanding. But it was 11 weeks too late and one zip code too far from where understanding needed to arrive. Midway through the main course, Brennan raised his glass. I just want to say, as someone who's been blessed to get to know Andrea over this past year, she is an extraordinary woman. Tucker, you're clearly someone who made her feel loved and supported. 10 years. That's a legacy. To the Marsdens. Get to know Andrea. Past year. Her name in his mouth with the softness of a man who has held it in private. Half a second of strange silence. The kind where a room isn't sure what it just heard. I let it land. I let every person at that table sit fully inside it. Then I raised my glass. Thank you, Brennan. I appreciate that. Everyone drank. Miss Carolyn did not. She set her glass down and looked at her husband Dwight, whose eyes had gone wide and still. Raymond looked at Damon. Damon gave the smallest possible nod. It's coming. I patted my jacket pocket where my note card sat, the speech I had written 3 weeks ago, the kind version, the one that did not include this room or this man. I'll save mine for after dessert. I have a few things I'd like to say. Andrea squeezed my hand. I can't wait. I let her hold it. I looked at her holding it. I let myself feel what it felt like to be held by someone who had not yet understood they were already letting go. The honey bread pudding arrived exactly as I had arranged, 2 portions plated the way we'd had it on our first date. The event coordinator had tracked down the original recipe from the closed Germantown restaurant through the former owner's daughter. It had taken 3 weeks and 2 phone calls and was worth every second. Andrea's hand flew to her mouth. Tucker, how did you? I remember everything, Dre. And in that moment something real moved across her face. Not performance. Not guilt management. Something genuine and undone. The look of a woman suddenly seeing clearly what she has been dismantling. Her eyes went glassy. I watched it happen. I watched her remember who I was. For one breath the whole room was soft. Then I looked across the table at Brennan, watching Andrea's face, and I saw the first real flicker of understanding move through him. Not guilt, not remorse, but the cold pragmatic recognition that this room was not what he had calculated it to be. Gloria's hand found my knee again under the table. I covered it. Released it. We ate. Damon told the stories. The Dodge pickup, the flapping sole on my Reebok, the first hotel contract, the kitchen at midnight when the business cleared $1 million. True stories. Good ones. The table laughed. I ate my bread pudding slowly. I was not tasting it. I was counting down. When the last plate was cleared, I folded my hands, looked around the table at every face I had placed in this room on purpose, and reached into my jacket pocket. I rose. The table quieted. Brennan lifted his camera. His job was to capture this moment, and I was going to let him. I want to thank everyone for being here. When I thought about who should be in this room tonight, I was very intentional. Every person here has witnessed this marriage. You've seen us built. You've seen us tested. You are here because you matter to the story. Nods. Smiles. Annivesary warmth settling over the table like something earned. I also want to acknowledge someone who isn't a longtime friend, but who Andrea specifically wanted here tonight. My gaze moved to Brennan with complete calm. Brennan, I'm glad you came. Keep that camera rolling, because what I'm about to say I want documented. The temperature in the room dropped. Brennan lowered the camera 1 centimeter. His throat moved. Damon set down his glass. Miss Carolyn gripped Dwight's arm. Gloria looked at her hands. Andrea's smile was frozen, a smile whose owner had not yet given her face permission to change. I looked down at my note cards. I looked back up. 11 weeks ago I found out my wife was having an affair. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Andrea's chair scraped back. Tucker. Sit down, Andrea. Not raised. Not hard. Just final. She sat down. I found out November 14th. Hotel receipts. 6 visits in 4 months. I want that on record because I know how these things get rewritten later. Tucker, please, not here? You brought him here. I looked at her, and for the first time all evening I let the performance of calm go. What lived underneath it was not rage. It was something colder and more permanent. You sat him at my table. You let him toast my marriage. You made that choice. So this is the room. Andrea's mother had both hands over her mouth. Dwight was staring at the tablecloth. Brennan had set the camera down. Both hands flat on the table. Eyes fixed on the middle distance with the expression of a man running exit calculations. I want to speak to you directly, Brennan. I turned to him fully, and the room contracted around those 2 points. I had you looked into after November 14th. You have a pattern. You find women who feel overlooked in good marriages. You make them feel electric. You let them believe it's love while you wait for the situation to turn comfortable for you. You've done this before. You will do it again. But you will not do it from inside my life. He opened his mouth. Don't. He closed it. I turned back to Andrea. I was not perfect. I worked too much. I was emotionally absent in years 6, 7, and 8, and I carry that. But I never left. I never stopped building for us. And instead of saying, Tucker, I'm drowning, you made this choice. I reached into my pocket, placed the original note cards, the kind speech, the 10-year speech, face down on the table. My attorney filed separation papers this morning. The house is yours through year end. Everything is fair and documented because I am not a man who does things ugly. I looked around the table one last time. Gloria, eyes full, spine straight. Damon, jaw tight, nodding slowly. Miss Carolyn with her face turned completely away. Raymond staring at the centerpiece. I picked up the white rose. I looked at it once. I set it gently in front of Andrea. 10 years, Dre. I loved you the whole time. I straightened my jacket and I walked out. No one spoke for 10 full seconds. Brennan reached for his camera. Damon's hand came down on top of it. Flat. Art. Don't touch that. Don't you take a single thing out of this room. Brennan did not touch the camera. Outside I sat in my truck in the Alara parking lot. I did not cry. I put my hands on the wheel and I breathed the way Gloria taught me in that East Memphis apartment when life came at a boy harder than any boy should have to carry. In through the nose, slow out through the mouth, until the body believes the storm has passed. After 4 minutes I started the truck. I drove to my mother's house. She was already on the porch. She had left the table the moment I walked out the door, because Gloria Marsden raised a man, and a man like that was not going to be alone tonight. I parked. I sat. She came down the porch steps and opened my door and I let my mother hold me the way she held me when I was 9 years old and our father didn't come back, completely without condition, without a single word needing to be said. I had built everything from gravel. I would build again.